Welcome to this Preppin Data Challenge that is looking at student loans, which I'm sure is a sore spot for many of us. But we're taking a look for preppers, graduates who are coming up to the first time that they have to pay. So we've got this kind of high level average amount input for us. So in general, a student will take the maximum of 9,250 in tuition fees to pay the university to attend, and then in order to actually live and have money to buy food and rent, then they'll take this maintenance loan out as well, so that they can survive for their time at university. So we have that the courses of these Prep Air graduates are starting in September 2020. And we want now to have a row for each time they received this loan payment. And we're simplifying this data set, or this problem, sorry, so that we are only considering that they get paid their loan amounts at the start of their course each year. So basically we need a field for their course end, which is just doing a date add calculated field. So adding on in years the number of years that their course lasts for, and then doing a -1 here because we're going to use the new rows step, and the new rows step only has less than or equal to, so our course start is less than or equal to our course end, and of course we already have that one row already for our first year, so we don't want it to create 4 years for us, we just want it to create those 3 years that the student will be studying. We don't need that final date for say the 1st of September 2024 because the student won't be a student anymore at that point. So we create a row per month, and I've only just realised when I've come back to look at this solution that I could definitely have changed my increment here to be 12 so that it was doing a year. I looked at this drop down and saw there wasn't a year value and thought, okay, I'll do one for every single month and then I will aggregate it back up to a row per year, which was quite silly actually. It's kind of interesting where your brain is at sometimes when you're solving these problems, and you realise, just coming back with a fresh pair of eyes, you realise how you could have done it differently. But as I like to kind of say to the data school consultants that I teach in my day job, if it works, it works. And as long as you're getting from A to B, then that's a good start. We can always come back later and optimize, but getting the results is the first thing that we need to do before we can optimize it. Cool. So yes, then I just aggregate this. So I'm grouping by my loan type, grouping by my amount per year, and then grouping by the year. So for that new field that we've created here, if I just remove it quickly, then going to this group by option, grouping by the level of year, so that it comes through as just the year rather than the monthly detail as well. So then we update that year field so that we are having the date that the loan was received. So it was received on the 1st of September in 2021, 2020 and 2022. I said that in a weird order because that's how Prep has chosen to order the rows down here, and that's what I was reading. Cool. And then we know our current date that we're looking to work towards is April 2024, and I just thought it'd be helpful to have an extra field for that. It's not really a necessary step. I could just have this in the calculation in the next step, but for me I was kind of breaking down this problem into smaller chunks, and that's why I decided to put a field for April 2024. Because now we want to calculate the number of months between April 2024 and when that loan was received, so that we can apply that compound interest for the right number of months, so that we get that value here. Obviously, for the loan that was received in 2022, we don't want to be charging interest on it before it's actually been given to the student, so we want to make sure that we have a different value for each of these dates. And then we want the information about the fact that this is an undergraduate loan. We could just create a field that says undergraduate in it, but it's actually in our table name. If we scroll back over here, then we can see it is in our table name as undergraduate loans. And sneaky way that you can get that table name out is just by adding in a union step, not having any other tables added to that union, but then you get a table names field, which is pretty handy so that we can kind of dynamically pull that undergraduate word from the table name with some splitting and so on and so forth to just get the undergraduate there. This is relevant because we need to join onto our repayment table, so we can see that we've got undergraduate loans or postgraduate loans. We're just focusing on the undergraduate loan today. I was going to make this challenge a lot more complicated, but I realised by the time I'd done just the undergraduate, that was probably complicated enough, so I saved that for a future idea maybe instead. And so we have all the information about how much interest gets applied, the repayment threshold when the graduate has to start repaying once their salary goes over that amount, and then what percentage do they pay over that amount. So something that I chose to do with the interest is, because this is the annual interest, I need to divide it by 12 so that it can apply monthly, since we are told that it does indeed apply monthly, unfortunately. And then we are making sure that this percentage repayment over threshold, we need to make that into an actual percentage, because at the moment it's just a 9 and a 6, so we divide that by 100. Nice and simple, and then we join those two tables together. So we're joining on the loan, so we have that one row coming through from our repayment table, and those 6 rows are all coming through from our loan details, which is great. Now we're going to calculate the total amount, the amount of interest that is applied. I forgot to rename this step from earlier when I was kind of working through this challenge. So we're going to make sure that interest gets applied to those values that we have. So the compound interest is where this calculation comes in. So our amount per year times by, we want the 1 plus the monthly interest, so that it is like 1.06% or something like that. I'm trying to find it on my screen. 1.006% roughly, to the power of the number of months since the course began. So that gets compounded together and that interest gets applied. Wonderful. We're then going to sum everything up so that we're treating it all as the totals, because at this point we don't really now care how it's broken down. So we're just grouping by the monthly interest, the payment threshold, the percentage repayment over the threshold, because we need those going forwards, and then we're summing up the amount per year to be our total amount borrowed, and our amount plus interest being the total borrowed plus the interest amount. Lovely. So we rename those two aggregated fields as we just discussed there. And now we're going to work out the monthly repayments that the graduate has to pay back to the loan company. And to do that, we've created a parameter, just a quick parameter here. There's a whole number and their salary. So we know their salary is either 30,000, 35,000 or 40,000 on these graduate schemes. I chose to just write 30, 35 and 40 rather than 30,000, 35,000. 40,000, I just need to remember to apply that in my calculation as well. So we're first of all breaking that down, so working out how much do they earn above the threshold. So doing the salary times by 1,000 minus the repayment threshold, and in this case it is £2,705 above the threshold, and then we need to take 9% of that. And so again, we need to break down that 9% we need to break down that all into monthly, because at the moment that salary is how much they earn above the threshold across the entire year. So we multiply that by 9%, and we divide that by 12 and just round that to 2 decimal places. So the monthly repayment is only £20, which doesn't sound too bad, does it? But if we then go and work out how much interest gets applied in that same month, that's where it gets a little bit sadder, I would say. But since you're paying off £20, but so much more interest gets added onto it. So we work that out just as that total borrowed plus interest field minus the monthly repayment that we have applied, and then multiplying that by the monthly interest that occurs. and that's the amount of interest that will be added next month to that loan amount. So some scary numbers there, I would say. But hopefully this challenge was enjoyable, probably a bit of a mathsy one this week, but thank you very much for watching.